Our last story involves a movie that has had no shortage of love or controversy this Oscar season. That would be Bohemian Rhapsody. The lauded star Rami Malek, who plays Freddie Mercury and is nominated and probably considered a frontrunner to win Best Actor at the Oscars, finally addressed his personal experience working with the troubled Bryan Singer on set. Now, Bryan Singer, the director of the movie, has had numerous allegations going back years, and a new wave of them has surfaced recently. Now, Singer was fired from the production some point during it. We don't know the exact percentage of how much of Bryan Singer's material is left in there. It seems like Bryan Singer had shot a fair amount by the time he was finally dismissed. But Rami Malek, he addressed the Me Too era and victims and how they should. And I think that Rami Malek did a very credible job expressing sympathy for anybody who is a victim. And then when he went on to his personal experiences about Bryan Singer, I'll just briefly quote. He said that, "I've sat here and talked about how everyone deserves a voice, and anyone who wants to talk about what happened with Bryan deserves to have their voice heard. In my situation with Bryan, it was not pleasant, not at all, and that's about all I can say at this point." He was visibly emotional after that. The audience applauded. This is at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival. He went on to say that for anyone who is seeking solace in all this, Bryan Singer was fired. Bryan Singer was fired. I don't think that was something anyone saw coming, but I think that had to happen, and it did. So I'm of two minds about this. The foremost is that I think that Rami Malek, maybe it's not confusing as to why he's talking about this now, because we are on the eve of the Oscars, more importantly, when you actually submit your votes for the Oscars. And so people are going to be asking him these questions over and over and over again. And I think that he did the smart play both for him and for his Oscar chances, but it felt like watching this that this is actually something that he really feels. I don't think that this is some sort of put-on publicity stunt to make sure you get your Oscar votes in just in time after seeing this. I think Rami Malek genuinely feels that way, and I think that harkens back to seeing him give acceptance speeches at other award shows like the Golden Globes, and when he's interviewed about this, never mentioned Bryan Singer, never thanked Bryan Singer. There was clearly tension on set, and that is not anything new, because you could also ask any members of the cast of the recent X-Men movies about how much better of a time they've had on Dark Phoenix, which has its own troubles, but not because of the director like maybe previous iterations did. Regardless of what you think of those movies, behind the scenes, it wasn't all sunshine and roses. Doesn't seem like it was that way on the Bohemian Rhapsody set either. So, Perry, what do you make of these most recent comics from Rami Malek?
I think this was necessary. On the one hand, I was looking at this whole situation from the very start and thinking to myself, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people who worked really, really hard on Bohemian Rhapsody, and then their leaders' shameful behavior, disgusting behavior, then all of a sudden is supposed to completely obliterate their hard work. On the one hand, that doesn't seem fair to me, but also when we're talking about someone like Rami Malek or anybody who is lucky enough to work in this industry and have a huge platform to be able to say their piece and make a difference in the world, I think it's about time that he opened up and said something about this. And I imagine, as he said, it was very difficult for him before, and I respect the fact that he waited until he was ready, but I do think it needed to happen. Again, taking the publicity stunt element completely out of it and how this affects his Oscar race, I do think this is a good thing overall, as he said, because him speaking out could encourage somebody else who is affected in a different way to speak out, and having someone maybe you look up to like Rami Malek step up and do that really could make a big difference.
John Roca, the Rami Malek comments out of the Santa Barbara International Film Festival recently. Do you think it's necessary? Do you think that it was time, like Perry mentioned, or do you have different feeling?
I think it's incredibly necessary and past time. You guys have heard me go on rants about Bryan Singer. He's a piece of crap, and I'm sick of us having to keep talking about this jerk off. He is so defensive on his social media about how much money he made, about everybody's loving his film. He's a jerk, and I have a few friends who've dealt with this man who understand the stuff he does behind the scenes. He is a jerk, and we need to be done with him. And if we're really going to move on as a city and as an industry, talking about Me Too and Time's Up needs to be done with everybody. And that includes him. Enough with him already. Red Sonja, X-Men, whatever they want to talk, I don't care. Enough already. Move him out. And I think Rami was brave to say what he said. I think it was powerful of him to say what he said. And it wasn't a publicity stunt. This is a man who feels things deeply. You can tell from his performances, from his interviews. He's a sensitive, well-thought man. And he approached this situation. He wanted to answer it in a public forum because Singer was starting to get get, defensive. He was starting to puff out his chest a little bit over the last couple of weeks because that article that came out in the Atlantic, by way of Esquire, he was starting to say, oh no, these are homophobic writers. These discredit their claims. Bullshit. A lot of people know what you've done, and a lot of people are sick of having to kowtow to you. And Millennium Films should be ashamed that they're still having him direct Red Sonja. And I hope that film crashes. I hope nobody allows himself to be cast in that film and works for this man ever again. We need to be done with this kind of behavior. Enough is enough already. It does not happen just one way. It should happen to everybody who commits these kinds of things.
I just don't understand. I've never understood since the day we reported that story. You're paying the guy $10 million to direct this movie. Are there no directors that are available for $8 million?
Yeah.
Like, you could probably save millions of dollars by hiring somebody else on Red Sonja. I don't get that at all.
It's not like he doesn't have an impeccable track record as a successful filmmaker and has never failed. He's failed multiple times. There are a number of other directors you can take a chance on. Lee Winnell was out there. Take Lee. Go get Lee. Go get a bunch of other directors who will work for a $9, $10 million or $8 million. There's fine. There's a bunch of them. People of color, women who want to prove what they can do. It's a Red Sonja. It's a female-led show. How are you, or film? How are you not getting a female director? Let her cut her teeth on a film like this. It's ridiculous to have Bryan Singer involved in this.